The cameras flashed. The crowd froze. And just like that, Hollywood had a new obsession. But behind closed doors, a $50 million disaster was brewing.
Yeah, a massive one.
Today, Madonna finally reveals what went wrong. Welcome to Starscope Report. Join Jordan and Jamie as they uncover Hollywood drama, music industry shakeups, and viral influencer scandals.
From red carpet surprises to social media controversies, we dive deep into the stories behind the fame.
Exactly. And if you're listening to this, you've probably watched a dozen music biopics. You know the exact formula.
Oh,
right?
totally. The rise, the struggle, the comeback.
Right. The whole predictable arc. Madonna knew you expected that formula, and she utterly refused to play along. So today we're doing a deep dive into the rise, the spectacular fall, and the truly bizarre meta-resurrection of Madonna's self-directed autobiographical movie.
And we are pulling from a really compelling stack of sources for this one. We've got industry reporting from Variety and World of Real, some deep dive cultural analysis from the blog called Culture.
Which is fantastic, by the way.
Yeah, it really is. Plus some highly granular, very opinionated debates from Reddit communities like Urtbot heads and Box Office.
So our mission today is to basically unpack the mechanics of this failure. We want to understand exactly why one of the most powerful women in the world couldn't get her own movie made.
And how she stubbornly bypassed the entire Hollywood system to tell her story anyway.
Okay, let's unpack this. The sheer scale of the hype back in, 2020 and 2021, it was astronomical.
Yeah, Universal Pictures won this massive bidding war for it.
Right, the working titles were Who's That Girl or Little Sparrow, and they even brought in Amy Pascal.
A heavyweight producer.
Exactly, to oversee it. But the crucial, unprecedented detail here was that Madonna demanded to co-write and direct the film herself.
Which is wild. Usually, a studio licenses an artist's life rights, they hire a screenwriter to dramatize it, and they bring in a veteran director to shoot it.
They want control.
Right. Giving the directorial reins to the actual subject of the biopic is an enormous anomaly.
But she didn't do it in a vacuum, though. She brought in established writers to help shape the drafts, like Aaron Cresta Wilson and Diablo Cody.
Oh, man. The tabloids had a field day with that.
They really did. If you followed the coverage back then, you probably saw those breathless headlines claiming Diablo Cody quit in a rage.
Because Madonna was supposedly an absolute nightmare to work with.
Exactly. But I was reading through the ARPA-Head source material, and the fans there completely debunked that narrative.
Yeah, the tabloids love a diva out-of-control narrative, but the reality of Hollywood screenwriting is just much more procedural.
Right.
According to the industry breakdowns on those forums, Diablo Cody simply finished her contract.
She just did the work she was hired for.
Exactly. She did her passes on the script, turned in her final draft to the studio, and moved on to her next contracted job.
Which was the CW's live-action Powerpuff Girls pilot, actually.
Yeah, so it wasn't a dramatic walkout at all. It was literally just how freelance writing in Hollywood functions.
But while the writing phase might have been standard procedure, the casting phase was anything but. The industry started calling it the Madonna boot camp.
Oh, the boot camp. That sounded brutal.
It really was. I mean, if an actress wanted this role, they didn't just walk into a room and read lines. They had to endure up to 11 hours a day of intensive choreography.
11 hours?
Yeah, 11 hours. Singing, dancing, acting sessions, all personally overseen by Madonna.
Which really tells you how fiercely protective she was of the physical reality of her life. She wasn't just looking for an impersonator.
No, not at all.
She was stress testing their stamina.
Yeah.
And we're talking about massive A-list names putting themselves through this grinder.
Right. Florence Pugh, Amanda Seyfried, Sydney Sweeney, they were all in the mix.
But ultimately, in 2022, Julia Garner won the role.
She did. So on paper, this looks unstoppable, right?
Yeah.
They have Julia Garner, they have Universal's backing, they have a finished script.
You'd think it was a sure thing.
But wait till you hear what came next, because things get incredibly complicated.
Oh, they do. If we pivot over to the core box office subreddit, the fans there were having this highly analytical debate about the fundamental financial ceiling of the movie.
Right. The core question they were asking was whether a Madonna biopic could actually rival the billion-dollar box office of a movie like Bohemian Rhapsody.
Or the upcoming Michael Jackson biopic. And that subreddit really drilled into the data of what they call the legacy bump.
I want to push back on that, though. I mean, can a musical biopic about a living, actively touring artist ever reach those billion-dollar heights?
That's the big question.
Right. Or is there like A hard upper limit to box office success when the audience can just buy a ticket to see the real person on tour. Or just scroll through their Instagram.
Well, the Reddit community made a very data-driven argument that there is, in fact, an upper limit.
Interesting.
Yeah, when you look at Bohemian Rhapsody, which made over $900 million, or the massive numbers for Elvis, those films function as a memorial space.
Right, because Freddie Mercury is gone.
Exactly. The theater becomes the only place for fans to commune with his energy. But when you look at a movie like Rocket Man, the Elton John biopic,
Which was critically acclaimed, by the way.
oh, incredibly well reviewed, and it was released while he was on a massive farewell tour. But it capped out around $195 million globally.
Wow. That is a staggering difference.
It really is. The urgency to see a simulated version of a living artist just isn't the same. But that box office ceiling wasn't the only anxiety the studio had.
They had plenty of others.
Right. The Reddit users were also debating the inherent risk of a self-directed biopic, because a great biopic requires a certain objective cruelty.
It has to show the humiliating failures, the flaws, the collateral damage of fame.
Exactly. And I have to admit, I completely understand the studio's hesitation here.
Me too. I mean, expecting someone to direct a multi-million-dollar movie that objectively highlights their own deepest flaws seems like a massive psychological blind spot.
Wouldn't any studio be terrified that they're just financing a sanitized 2-hour vanity project?
They were terrified of exactly that. And that fear wasn't just Reddit gossip. It was the exact financial anxiety that led to the studio pulling the plug.
Which brings us to the actual mechanics of the fallout. And later in the deep dive, we'll talk about the shocking twist nobody saw coming with how this story actually ends up getting told.
Yeah, the ending is wild. But before we get there, the collapse of this project really came down to two classic Hollywood hurdles: money and creative control.
As always.
Right. Madonna did an interview with Interview magazine where she laid it out perfectly. She literally said, "I've had an extraordinary life. I've had a huge life, so I needed a big budget."
But studios don't finance lives. They finance risk profiles.
Ooh, that's a great way to put it.
And Madonna's risk profile as a director was highly problematic for them.
Because she had directed
Okay.
before. She directed Filth and Wisdom and W.E.
Both of which were, unfortunately, critical and commercial misfires.
Yeah, they were. So to try and bridge this massive gap between her vision and the studio's spreadsheet, Madonna actually pitched shooting the entire film in Serbia.
Which is actually a very common mechanism for stretching a production budget.
Really?
Yeah, Eastern Europe offers massive film tax incentives, cheaper sound stages, non-union labor. It can make a $50 million movie look like a $100 million movie.
Huh. But Universal's response to this pitch was incredibly blunt. They told her directly, "We don't believe you'd stay in Serbia more than 4 days."
Ouch. What's fascinating here is the psychological disconnect between how the studio viewed her and how she views herself.
Absolutely.
The studio looked at a wealthy, meticulously curated global pop icon and assumed she lacked the grit to handle a grueling, unglamorous, freezing film shoot in Eastern Europe.
And Madonna was furious. Her response was, "Did you read the script? My whole life has been survival. I'm not going there for a holiday."
They fundamentally misunderstood the work ethic of a woman who arrived in New York City in 1978 with $35 in her pocket.
Right. You don't survive the gritty 1980s New York club scene, navigate the predatory music industry, and endure decades of intense public backlash without an ironclad constitution.
Exactly. But the executives only saw the billionaire pop star, not the survivor.
It makes me think of an analogy like, imagine a visionary tech founder who built a revolutionary operating system from scratch in their garage 30 years ago.
Okay, I'm with you.
But today, they demand to personally write the code for a massive, company-saving software update, entirely alone in a room, without any quality assurance testing.
The board of directors would panic.
Yes. Not because they doubt the founder's genius, but because placing a $100 million bet on a single point of failure with zero oversight is basically financial malpractice.
That is a perfect analogy. A blockbuster movie is a highly volatile, collaborative financial vehicle. Universal simply couldn't justify the liability of a self-directed, blank check production.
So the traditional theatrical route died. But wait, if you're loving these Hollywood twists, make sure you're subscribed because we've got even crazier stories ahead.
Yes, hit that subscribe button, because in modern Hollywood, a dead movie isn't always dead.
Right, it usually just migrates to streaming.
Exactly. Netflix and producer Sean Levy approached Madonna with a new pitch. They said, Stop trying to cram 40 years of history into a 2-hour movie, and let's turn this into a limited television series.
Which honestly makes a lot of sense.
It does. Mechanically, a limited series gives a sprawling narrative, the breathing room it needs. You can dedicate an entire episode to the docs, like a prayer controversy, rather than just a 5-minute montage.
But this is where the sheer brutality of Hollywood contracts comes into play.
Right.
Because Universal still owned the script that Madonna had spent years co-writing.
Oh, right.
Yeah, if she wanted to take that script to Netflix, Universal demanded what she described as an extortionist price to buy it back.
And this is a crucial mechanism to understand about how intellectual property works in development.
Break that down for us.
When a studio pays writers to develop a script, even if one of those writers is the person whose life the script is about, the studio owns the physical pages. Yeah, they own the narrative structure, the dialogue, the specific framing of those life events. Madonna owns her life, obviously, but she was essentially doing work for hire on the dramatization of her life.
That is insane.
To take that specific narrative architecture to Netflix, she literally had to buy her own story back from Universal.
That sounds absolutely maddening.
Got it.
And on top of being held hostage over her own script, the pivot to television meant she had to find a showrunner.
Right. She needed someone to run the day-to-day.
She spent 8 or 9 months taking meetings, trying to find a writer-producer who could execute her vision for television. And she just grew increasingly frustrated, realizing nobody was going to protect the story the way she would.
So she walked away from Netflix, too.
She did.
She realized the friction wasn't just the studio or the streamer. The friction was the medium of film and television itself.
Which leads to a brilliant pivot. Her manager, Guy O'Siri, stepped in with an idea. He essentially said, if the traditional gatekeepers won't let you make the movie, take that exact narrative vision, that exact script structure, and pour it into a medium where you hold all the power.
And that pivot became the Celebration Tour.
Yes. The Cult Culture blog did a phenomenal analysis of this tour. They pointed out that it wasn't just a standard greatest hits concert.
No, it was literally the scrapped movie playing out live on stage. They called it a pop theater retrospective.
The details from that blog are haunting. They break down how she used the stage to tell a chronological, deeply emotional story.
Like that specific transition they highlighted.
Right. The standout moment is her performance of the upbeat early career track Holiday. Instead of ending on a triumphant dance note, the music warps, ominous undertones creep in, and it transitions directly into a dark, stripped-down performance of the ballad Live to Tell.
And she used that specific transition to viscerally simulate the onset of the AIDS crisis.
It's so powerful.
The screens behind her populated with the faces of the friends, mentors, and peers she lost to the disease. People like Martin Burgoyne and Christopher Flynn.
And the choreography literally simulated the sudden devastation. The stage trapdoors opened up and swallowed the dancers, visualizing how quickly that vibrant club culture was decimated.
It's a level of heavy, unfiltered narrative storytelling that you almost never see in a mainstream stadium pop show.
Okay, but I have to challenge this idea for a second. I hear what the blog is saying, but I have a hard time buying that a massive stadium show with pyrotechnics, trapdoors, and backup dancers is somehow more raw or authentic than a carefully acted film.
Really? You don't think so?
I mean, doesn't a movie let you see the quiet, devastating moments? Like crying alone in a dressing room. A massive stadium physically cannot capture that. Is a concert really a better vehicle for a life story?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture of creative control, the answer for Madonna is absolutely yes.
Okay, tell me why.
What a stadium show lacks in intimate cinematic close-ups, it makes up for in untempered authenticity. Think about what a Universal or Netflix executive would have demanded for a 4-quadrant demographic marker.
Meaning they'd want the movie sanded down so it appeals equally to teenagers, older adults, international markets, everyone.
Precisely. They would have given her studio notes telling her the AIDS tribute was too depressing for the second act, or that the pacing needed to be more uplifting.
Ah, I see what you mean.
On a stadium stage, she bypassed the studio notes entirely. She didn't have to water down her survivor's guilt or sanitize the gritty reality of the 1980s. She forced tens of thousands of people a night to experience the emotional whiplash of her life in real time on her exact terms.
He basically proved she didn't need their budget or their permission to tell her story.
Exactly.
But wait, because here's where it gets really interesting. Just when you think the cinematic version of the Madonna biopic is entirely dead, buried, and replaced by a concert tour, it miraculously resurrects.
Just not in the real world.
No. Have you been watching Seth Rogen's Apple TV Plus series, The Studio?
Oh my gosh, this satire about the fictional legacy movie company Continental Studios. Yes.
For season 2, Seth Rogen and his co-creator Evan Goldberg executed the most insane meta stunt I think I've ever seen on television.
It's brilliant.
They ripped Madonna's real-life scrapped movie into the plot of their fictional show. In the universe of The Studio, Continental Studios is the financier that actually cuts the check and gets the Madonna biopic made.
It completely blurs the line between reality and television. It's such a sharp commentary on the industry itself.
And it wasn't just a throwaway joke in the dialogue. Madonna and Julia Garner, the actress who originally won the role in that grueling real-life boot camp, actually went to Italy to shoot a 2-episode arc for the series.
That's so cool.
They filmed scenes at the Venice Film Festival, premiering this fake biopic. They even put Julia Garner in a gondola in the Venetian canals to recreate the iconic, like a Virgin music video for the cameras.
So the fans who followed that grueling boot camp actually get to see Julia Garner play Madonna. It's just wrapped in a layer of premium cable satire.
Exactly. And the timing of this is no accident. While all of this meta television is making headlines, Madonna channeled the pent-up creative energy from the failed Netflix deal into actual new music.
Because of course she did.
She announced a brand new album, Confessions on a Dance Floor, Part 2, releasing on July 3, 2026.
Wow.
And the lead single, Bring Your Love, is a highly anticipated collaboration with Sabrina Carpenter.
See, this entire sequence of events proves that Madonna's ultimate genius isn't just her music or her choreography.
What is it then?
It is her absolute mastery of marketing and myth-making.
Explain that. How is failing to make a movie a marketing triumph?
Because she took a public, humiliating Hollywood rejection, a major studio explicitly telling her she wasn't worth the financial risk, and a streamer unable to meet her terms, and she weaponized it.
She really did.
She turned a failure into a massive cultural victory lap. She reclaimed the narrative of her life on a global stadium tour. She immortalized the lore of her unmakeable movie on a critically acclaimed TV show. And she used all of that generated cultural friction to launch a new album with one of today's biggest pop stars.
She judo flipped the entire entertainment industry. She basically proved that if the gatekeepers won't let you through, you don't stand there knocking, you just build your own gate.
It is a masterclass in resilience and medium manipulation.
It really is. So let's just step back and recap this wild journey because it is staggering.
Yeah, let's look at the whole picture.
We started with the intense 11-hour days of the Universal Boot Camp, with Hollywood's biggest actresses fighting for a role in a movie that didn't even have a green light.
Right.
Then we watched the project bleed out over budgets and Serbian shooting schedules. Then the script was literally held hostage by a studio, killing a massive Netflix deal.
Which forced a pivot to the deeply emotional celebration tour.
And culminated in this triumphant, winking cameo on The Studio Season 2.
It demonstrates that a truly great story will always find a way to be told, even if the container it sits in has to change completely.
And for you listening, I think there is a profound practical takeaway here about how to process rejection.
Absolutely.
When the traditional gatekeepers, whether that's a boss, a publisher, a Hollywood studio, or an algorithm, when they block your vision, you don't have to compromise the core of what you're trying to say. You just change the medium.
If the movie doesn't work, make it a concert.
If the concert is over, make it a meta joke on a TV show. The story remains yours.
You don't downsize the vision, you just change the delivery system.
So think back to that paradox we started with. The studio wanted the icon, but they didn't want the risk. But as we look toward the future, it leaves me with one final kind of provocative thought for you to ponder.
Let's hear it.
We're watching AI and deepfake technology rapidly evolve. We're seeing artists gain more and more direct, unfiltered channels to their audiences without needing a studio middleman. Are we witnessing the death of the traditional Hollywood musical biopic?
That is a huge question.
Right. If a pop star can recreate their life story across stadium stages, meta TV shows, and social media with absolute, uncompromised creative control, perhaps the idea of a boardroom of executives hiring a writer to tell an artist's story will soon seem as completely outdated as buying a CD.
Stay tuned and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what's coming next on these kinds of shifts.
You've been listening to Starscope Report, where Jordan and Jamie uncover the stories shaping Hollywood, music, and pop culture. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories that keep the stars shining.